And then, David, there's the defense, because you know what the rhetoric is out of spring practice for all these coaches and players is everything's progressing, everything's great, everybody looks great. And then we try to figure out what's truth and what's not necessarily the truth. Again, I look online, I'm looking up things, I'm hearing defense is improved. We expect so much more out of this unit this year.
Yeah, Mark, like I said, I think part of it is because they were not as bad as what they showed last year. Of course, it takes a lot to be that bad, historically bad, for what they showed on defense last year. Lost some confidence early. Pretty tough, okay, tough schedule as the season went on. No shame in what Alabama did to them, because Alabama did that pretty much to everybody. But I think part of it, Mark, was a lot of fans wanted the youth movement just because it was a lot of experienced guys who just weren't getting it done last year. You had your Donovan Steiners and your Sean Davis and Marco Wilson back there in the secondary. And for whatever reason, those guys had plenty of experience, but act like they had never played a down of football for Florida. Didn't know where to line up, late getting lined up, letting big plays happen. And like I said, I think a lot of that was due to some confidence. And Mark, we give this Florida coaching staff a whole lot of credit for being able to develop and being able to teach, more so than a lot of other staffs out there. And they lost that during spring and COVID last year. And look, that's not an excuse. Everybody had that to deal with. But I think for a lot of the credit that we give this staff for being able to be some of the better teachers in college football, they lost that last year. So it probably affected Florida a little more so than some teams last year. But I still don't know if that's the full excuse, because like I said, you had plenty of experience coming back and those guys looked lost. The defense didn't change. You had coaching staff. The whole entire coaching staff on defense didn't change. And it was your most experienced players out there who looked lost. So that's not the full excuse of losing a spring last year, but spring and getting that teaching. But I think that did hold back the youth movement a lot of people wanted to see. The experienced guys weren't getting it done, but since you didn't have those teachable moments for the young guys, you couldn't throw them out there. And a lot of fans wanted, it can't be any worse. Well, it can be. It could be. So that's what this spring was for, Mark. Getting a lot of those young players who didn't get a lot of time last year, getting them on the field. And hopefully, the word's true that it paid dividends. Linebackers, Tyron Hopper, Derek Wingo, two high-profile recruits there at linebacker. They'll get on the field and some more. Hopper, for all in just beating around the bush and talking to people since we weren't able to see any of spring, that Tyron Hopper may have been the MVP of spring, both sides of the ball there. So that speaks to very well for the linebacker. Ventrell Miller was out all spring, the most experienced middle linebacker for Florida. He was out, so those guys got an opportunity to go out there and prove their worth. You got the transfers up front with Newkirk and Valentino from Auburn and Penn State. Look, the Florida offensive line is still a work in progress, still not at the level where they need to be. So the word coming out of spring was the defensive line dominated, led by those two transfers, led by a five-star Gervin Dexter, who played a lot as a true freshman last year. Defensive line dominated. So, you ask yourself the question, is it because the offensive line still isn't where it needs to be, or the defensive line is really good? Truth's probably somewhere in the middle, if you want to put it that way. So, Mark, it starts there up front. Those two transfers Florida absolutely needed to have. They got those guys, inserted them in the spring. They got plenty of experience with the defense this spring. Should be better on the second level. It's all about that secondary. Kaiir Elam comes back. He's going to be first, second team All-SEC cornerback. Nothing really behind him proven. Trey Dean, you hope that he can continue on the high rise toward the end of season last year. Finally found a home at safety. Battled some injuries at some point last year. So you hope, Kaiir Elam, Trey Dean, who have a lot of experience for this Gator defense, those guys lead the secondary. Five-star Jason Marshall comes in the other cornerback position and gives Florida three really good guys on the back end. I really hope, that this defense made some coaching changes back there in the secondary as well. So a whole lot of change, a whole lot of youth movement for this Gators defense that hopefully would be better. And Mark, how I ended kind of with the joke here, for years with Will Muschamp and Jim McElwain, we said, there's no way that offense can be worse than it was the year before. And by God, they found a way to be worse than they were the year before. So, we can sit here and say there's no way the defense can be worse than they were last year. Well, it can happen. It can happen. I won't predict it to happen, but, it can happen.